Who saw this coming? Nobody. France, the mighty ex-colonial power, is now counting every euro. All because one small West African nation slammed the door on its gold rush.
Allow me to say this one statement. Ibrahim Traore has single-handedly brought down France's empire in Africa.
He also insulted all Africans.
I think they forgot to say thank you to us. It's not a big deal. It will come with time.
There is a part that caught my attention where he talked about ingratitude.
Gratitude, I am well aware, is a non-transmissible disease to humans.
He is human. Our ingratitude is not transmissible to him. This is how this gentleman sees Africa, sees Africans. We are not human. In his eyes, I think that if he is not an atheist and he prays, every morning when he wakes up and prays, he should also pray to the Africans. Because it is thanks to our ancestors that there is a France today. He should pray to us.
Is it true most of France's financial wealth right now is still built on
$500 billion a year?
Wow. From Africa?
From Africa.
Wow.
500. That's a lot of money.
And is it true that the deals are such that an African nation that has this deal with France cannot do business around the world with their natural resources without the first right of refusal with France?
First right of refusal is in
and they can still tell them no?
Mm-hmm. They can still tell them no.
So if they've dug gold, coffee, cocoa, whatever, they go to France like, hey, you guys want this? And they say, nah. And they say, okay, we're going to sell it over here. France can still say, nah, you can't do that.
So insane.
And all those nations still run on the French franc, which is also hilarious because even France has
goes
a
on the euro.
Exactly.
So wait, they buy money from France with their own natural resources.
And if they don't
that's
comply,
not even worth anything in France.
Yep. And if they don't comply, the faucet's turned off immediately.
Grand rising kings and queens from Africa and across the ocean. Welcome back to my YouTube commentary. I want to start by thanking each and every one of you for your love, your energy, your presence, your support. I truly appreciate you. For all those who have subscribed, thank you so much. And if you are new here, please subscribe. For those who are sending super thanks, I appreciate so much. Thank you. So today I'm talking about something historic. I'm talking about something powerful and something that many people thought they will never live to see. When I started to hear about the France Empire in Africa, I was like, God damn it. Will we ever win this battle? Will we? But African leader Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso, has shaken the very foundation of France Empire in Africa. And some people are calling him the modern day Thomas Sankara. Others are saying he has already written his name in the book of African freedom fighters, and that is the truth. But what cannot be denied is this: Ibrahim Traore has single-handedly brought France Empire down to its knees in West Africa. And this is not just about Burkina Faso. It's not just about one man. As I said earlier, it's about the fall of neo-colonialism. This is about a young leader becoming the symbol of African resistance. He is a movement. He is a resistance. It's about the end of centuries of European exploitation in our soil, African soil, okay? Ibrahim Traore is just a man barely in his 30s, okay? Wearing his military uniform, standing in front of thousands of his people. He does not speak like a puppet. He does not bow down to the West. I know we have watched a lot of content about Ibrahim Traore, but this one, what is happening in France, has made me to say again, it was the hand of our ancestors. The favor in Ibrahim Traore, the movement, the zeal that has pushed France to its knees right now. The economy is going down, just because they are not exploiting Africa. Now, before I go down to my video, I want you to watch these clips first and then we continue.
So the French government has fallen again, but international news media is going to be very shy about telling us the real reason why it's fallen, the economic reasons why it's fallen. On his way out, the ousted Prime Minister, Mr. Francois, said, "You might kick me out, you might remove me, but that does not change the economic problems for the country." I'm paraphrasing. The real reason why France has failed as a government is because Africa has taken its power back. Ever since the country of Niger in the Sahel in Central West Africa decided to nationalize its uranium, France has never been the same again. This uranium that state-owned companies like Orano, French-owned companies like Orano had been siphoning, stealing under the previous government, today, Niger turned off the faucet. Niger said no more. So Niger, under the new governance of President Tiani, is nationalizing its uranium. This uranium France was stealing not only to light its beautiful cities like Paris and Nice, it was also using it to run its electrical manufacturing and industries. All of these are processing and running their nuclear reactors on top of it all. So these things that are the foundations of an economy, like manufacturing and processing, right now that the electricity in France, their energy is not safe. They do not have a reliable place to get their energy from. This is why they're suffering. But it's not going to be told that way on international news media. You're only going to hear it from people like me and others who are truth tellers. So yeah, this is why. This is what happens. This is proof that African leaders are in service of either them or us.
So now that Africa, 14 countries in Africa has cut France totally off. They told France that they will not be sending them no 85% of their income. They will not be doing it. They've been doing that shit since 1959 and they will no longer be doing it. France thought that Africa was playing. And no, they weren't. Because now France, their economy is tanking big time. They are in such a deficit. Their country is just falling. It's burning right now. It hasn't even been 3 months, and they can't pay their bills. Those 14 countries in Africa is putting France fucking out of business. And that's only 14 countries. You know, Africa has 52 or 53. What is France gonna do? And Africa don't even want to make no deals. They don't even want to work with them. They don't want to do shit. They're done. They're finished. It's over with. We don't want to talk to y'all no more. Them 14 countries are trying to get the other countries to just start pulling back too. So France is falling. France is falling, y'all.
Who saw this coming? Nobody. France, the mighty ex-colonial power, is now counting every euro. All because one small West African nation slammed the door on its gold rush. Here's how Burkina Faso made France bleed. Look at France today, July 2025. Its economy is barely crawling forward at 0.7% growth. That's pathetic. Not enough to cover its massive debt, which now sit at over 112% of GDP. Farmers are blocking highways. Workers are striking. Energy costs are choking industries. And the government is desperate to cut spending. But the people won't have it. This is what you get for being greedy. If these guys were honest with Burkina Faso, okay, or their colonies, all this while, maybe by now they'll still be enjoying life. But plundering and taking away everything, see where you landed yourself. A good for you. A good for you. Now, why does this matter? Because the old money tap that kept France comfortable was Africa. And Burkina Faso just shut it off. Yeah. Now, for decades, France's troops guarded mines. Its companies dug up gold, uranium, oil, and billions flowed to Paris, while West Africans stayed poor. But not anymore. That's why I'm happy. Now, under Ibrahim Traore, let me correctly. Under Captain Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso booted out foreign soldiers. Ivava Isuzu cancelled shady mining deals and kept its gold at home. over 11 tons of gold now locked in state reserves instead of French banks. The result? France's easy cash is gone. Troops pulled out. Uranium from Niger, gone. Gold from Burkina Faso, gone. Control of the CFA franca, slipping. Now, France is stuck with strikes, rising debt, and no more colonial cushion to bail it out. We go see what we're going to do. The empire is learning the hard way. You're going to learn. You're going to learn the hard way. Because Africa is keeping its wealth. Europe too is feeling the pinch. So, if you want to see what real independence looks like, watch France sweat. And remember, it all started when one so-called poor country said, our gold stays here. Our future is ours. France is bleeding. And Burkina Faso pulled the plug. What do you think about this? Congratulations to Burkina Faso. Congratulations to Africa. And to France.
So France, let me ask you something. What was the plan? Where did you think this plan was going? You built your economy off of uranium you didn't mine. You built your economy over lights you didn't pay for. And you built your economy off of power from a land whose people still live in the dark. You flew first class off the fuel that never touched your soil, and you called that a partnership? Now look at you. Your lights are flickering, your industry is choking, your arrogance is gasping for air. And why? Because Niger said no, because Burkina Faso said not anymore, and because Mali looked you in the eye and said, you're not welcome here. See, you're not losing because of bad luck. You're losing because the abused wife stopped cooking for you. You're losing because she stopped cleaning. You're losing because she stopped pretending. She realized she was the source of your strength. Now, this is bigger than Paris. This is about a global reckoning. The West is learning what it means to run out of stolen things. To all the Western nations that built their empires off of unpaid labor and unpaid bills, I have one question for you. What was your long-term plan? What was the plan? Did you think Africa was going to let you plunder forever? Did you think Africa was never going to wake up? Did you think Africa was never going to fight back? Did you think we would never realize we were the ones holding up your entire global illusion? We were the wife in the abusive relationship. We were cooking your meals, we were raising your kids, and we were funding your dreams. And all you ever gave us was debt, chaos, poverty, sanctions, and shiny buildings in Dubai that we couldn't enter. Until one day, the eldest son, with shoulders wide and heart heavy, looked at you and said, you touch her again, I dare you. And that's Niger, that's Mali, that's Burkina Faso. That's the sound of a continent finally raising its voice. Let me say this clearly. Capitalism is not our savior. It was never built for us. It was built on top of us. And yes, it worked for you for a while, but your greed didn't know when to stop. You took too much for too long with too little respect, and now your lights are dimming. Let that be your lesson, and let it be our warning as Africans. Africa, we must not repeat their mistake. This is not the time to just nationalize. This is the time to reimagine everything. When we finally sit at that BRICS table, or the AU table, or sign deals with China or India or whoever, we don't show up as beggars anymore. We're not beggars. We are the plug. We are the minerals. We are the sun. We are the food. We are the future. They have always known this. The West has always known this. So we don't trade like we're scared to lose access. We negotiate like the world will stop spinning without us, because it will. And to the West, don't just change your plan. Change your posture, because those old tricks you used to use, they don't work anymore. The aid, it doesn't land, and your white savior complex, is expired. So before I go, France, you lost access to uranium, but I'm pretty sure you didn't lose access to reason. So ask yourself, was the plan ever sustainable? Was it ethical? Was it ever yours to begin with? Because we're not asking for revenge. We've always asked for respect, and that's all we're asking for. Respect. And this time, we're not waiting for your permission. Let's move.
Welcome. Now, for more than 60 years, 60 good damn years, France has stationed troops in West Africa under the excuse of fighting terrorism. And you know what was happening? Instead of peace, instead of more stability in Africa, it was more death, it was more control over our resources, okay? Burkina Faso under Traoré became the first to say enough is enough. And he ordered French troops to go away. He shut down French military bases. And once Burkina Faso did it, the dominance or the domination of France began to fall, because Mali did the same, Niger did the same. So what was once called France's backyard was slipping out of its hands. Now, do you really understand the power of that? A young man, younger than most of the presidents in the world, inspired entire nations to break free from their colonial master. And that is why today we say, or today I'm saying, that Ibrahim Traore has single-handedly brought down France's empire in Africa. It does not stop with soldiers, okay? Because France control in Africa was never just about the military. It was about money too. CFA franc. The CFA franc, a currency, was created by France, and this was controlled by France and designed to keep African countries dependent for decades. 14 African nations, name it, 14 African nations were in this system of CFA franc. They couldn't control their own reserves. Like here Kenya, we use Kenyan money, Kenyan shillings. So it's, for example, here Kenya, we use dollars. But Traore did something. Traore said that he said no more, no more. He said Africans must have their own currency, their own financial independence. When a leader stands like that, it gives courage to the entire continent. When Traore did that, suddenly observations or conversations about ditching the CFA franc grew louder in Senegal, Ivory Coast, Benin, and France knows that if the CFA franc collapses, that is their last chain of Africa. That's their last chain. They are chaining West African. And when it's gone, then the chain is broken. Do you realize humiliation? This is for France. Do you? I don't know you know the depth of this. Because for decades, France moved in Africa like a master. Presidents bowed to France. Leaders begged France for favors. The West saw Africa as a place to dominate, not as a partner, not clean business. But Traore flipped the script. Traore flipped the script, and he is not begging. He's not asking politely. He's commanding. He's saying, France, get out. Africa belongs to Africans. Okay? So, this is not happening in silence. Yeah, it's not happening in silence. The whole world is watching. And that's why we are seeing even white people are out there carrying their placards saying, leave Traore alone. Okay? Even in Europe, in Caribbean, America, in Asia, analytics are saying the same thing. France has lost Africa. And it's very true. France has lost his dominance in Africa. And the one who is the center of it is Ibrahim Traore. Burkina Faso knows this story very well. In the 1990s, Thomas Sankara stood up with the same blind boldness, and he refused to bow down. He pushed for self-reliance, he planted trees, he empowered women, he rejected loans from the IMF, and because of that, France and its elites hated him, and they unalived him. But family, Sankara's spirit never died like that. It lived in the hearts of Burkinabe's people. It lived in the dreams of Pan-Africans across the continent. And today, that spirit has found its vessel. And that vessel is Ibrahim Traore. So when people call him Sankara Reborn, they are not exaggerating, okay? He has picked up the torch of liberation and is running with it, okay? Now, one thing that makes this even stronger is that Burkina Faso is not standing alone, because Traore has built alliance with Mali, Niger, and together they formed what they call Alliance of Sahel, okay? Now, the alliance is not just military, it's economic, it's political, it's cultural. And for the first time in decades, African nations are saying we don't need France. We have each other. And this unity has shaken the Paris on its core. And that's why Paris is going down. That's why they are on the street, because the economy is bad. And they know that if this alliance grows, they know that if it grows, the days of French dominance are over. Because if these other countries, because the 14 countries, if these other countries sees what is happening in these three alliances, then they will say, okay. They know that if Africa keeps choosing leaders like Traoré, Europe will lose the cheap resources, the unfair deals, the unfair contracts, their power they have enjoyed for centuries. Because they have built their countries from lies, they have built their countries from exploitation and from cheap resources. Traoré is very young, and he speaks the language of the youths. And that's why we're saying the power is in the hands of the youths. See what happened in Nepal just the other day. Youths took Nepal on their hands and they said enough is enough. The youths are understanding the frustration. So Traoré is understanding the frustrations of the youths. He knows that the African youths no longer want to live under colonial shadow. And these African youths, he knows they want jobs, they want dignity, they want respect, they want future to build on African soil. And that's why you see young people in the streets of Ouagadougou, the streets of Bamako, the streets of Niamey. They are waving pictures of Ibrahim Traore, chanting his name, raising their fists, and he has given them something to brag about. Now, when I talk about Ibrahim Traore, I'm not just talking about one man. I said that before. I'm talking about a mirror, a reflection of African anger, a reflection of Africa's resilience and Africa's demand for change. Okay? Now, France never believed that its empire in Africa could collapse that quickly. Yeah, they never believed that, because for decades, they have acted like it had permanent ownership in the land of Africa, gold, uranium, okay? And even the decisions Africans were making, it was being influenced by France. But now, look what is happening. France is picking up. France is living in shame. With Africans are still rising with confidence, okay? And we have the cracks in France empire. I'll break down for you that. Military control. The bases are soldiers and weapons spread across West and Central Africa. The CFA franc had unfair contracts and exploitation of resources. African leaders who obeyed France more than they served their own people. But right now, look at what Traoré has done. He has destroyed that first pillar by expelling France troops. He has shaken the second pillar by questioning the CFA franc. And he has broken the third pillar by showing Africa that we don't need leaders who bow down in Paris. And that's why I say today that Traoré has single-handedly caused the empire to crash. After all this, of course, France responded, okay? They cannot take it lightly, but they responded with arrogance. They used media to call Traoré radical. They spread propaganda saying he would isolate Burkina Faso. They warned of economic collapse. They even tried to divide African people by planting stories of fear. But the truth is, none of it has worked. Dealing with Jay-Z is somehow different. When they say yes, it's yes. Because when the people are behind their leader, no amount of propaganda can erase the power. And Traoré's legitimacy does not come from Western approval. No. It comes from the Burkinabe people. It comes from the African youths, from the Kenyan youths, from the Ghanaian youths. Because for too long, the Europe countries believed they have control, or they will control our destiny forever. And they cannot understand the unity, the Pan-African unity we are having right now. They cannot understand the African youths, what African youths are saying, okay? Traoré inspired what I call domino effect. Because after Burkina Faso expelled France, Mali did the same, Niger did the same, and now whispers of liberation are spreading to Chad, Senegal, and every countries in the West, even Ivory Coast. These are the countries that once thought that to be unshakable in French allies, with the French allies. Think about this. In less than 2 years, 2 or 3 years, okay? 3 major West African countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, have united and broken from France. Now, this was unthinkable. Think about this. What if we give a shot of 5 years? What will happen? Just 5 years. And that's why the Western world is panicking, because they see the impact of Traoré in 2 years, and they see their empire is falling. It is collapsing at the highest speed. I call it lightning speed. France has always depended on Africa or African resources like 30% of uranium that powers France electricity comes from Niger. 30%. Without it, their lights are off. Gold, cotton, and cocoa flow from West Africa to Paris. Family, we are not talking about small change. We are talking about billions every single year. Billions. So when Traoré and his allies tell France to leave, Paris is not just losing influence, it is losing wealth. And that's why Macron is reckless. I think even he is even retired, overthrown, I think, something like that. Okay? That's why French politicians are panicking right now, because without Africa, France is nothing but a small European country just trying to survive. Ibrahim Traoré, at only 30, is younger than most of African presidents, younger than most of Western leaders, and younger than many of the so-called experts who thought that they control Africa forever, okay? And his age mates are there supporting him. And his age matters too, because he represents the African youth. And African youths are the highest number of people right now in the world. African youths have grown. So, and when these young people look at him, when these youths look at Ibrahim Traoré, they don't see another old puppet, okay? Because we are seeing ourselves on Ibrahim Traoré. We see what is possible. And that's why you see murals of Traoré painted across Burkina Faso. That's why you see pictures of Traoré painted across Kenya, across Ghana. And that's why young African in Mali, Niger, they carry his picture during protests. And that's why you see Africans in diaspora in France, in the US, in the Caribbean, are the name of Ibrahim Traoré. They resonate with him. And let me tell you, Western media cannot stand this. They don't know how to frame it. They don't. When France loses control, they call it instability. And when Africa kicks out exploitation, they call it a threat. When Africa night, they call it radical, okay? But we know the truth. You know the truth, I know the truth. The truth is simple. Africa is rising and France is falling. Reality is, when France loses Africa, it loses everything. There's some Europe countries here, when they lose Africa, they lose everything. And when Africa rises, the entire balance of the world power changes. Let me remind you one thing. France has always seen itself as a global power because of Africa. So without African resources, without African markets, without African obedience, France would have collapsed long time ago. Their nuclear plants rely on Niger's uranium. Their banks thrive on African money, just like USA and Black American money, okay? The companies of France, they live off African contracts. Now imagine this. Traoré and his allies have slammed the door shut. Suddenly, France is standing in the dark, okay? Now, in the dark, this is to say that they are starting to beg what it once took by force. And that's why they are panicking, because losing Africa is not just about money. It's about identity. They are losing identity, okay? So without Africa, France is just a body without blood. And let me tell you, family, the West is in panic right now. They are seeing France and they're like, wow. Because the whole of West is watching in fear. Because if Africa rises, America loses its cheap labor and raw materials. If Africa rises, Europe loses its easy wealth. If Africa rises, the global South sees a model of independence that can inspire Latin America, Asia, and the Caribbean. And this is why Western media, Western government, and Western institutions are united in attacking Traoré. It's not just about Burkina Faso. It's because they see a spark that could light up the entire African continent. And that is reality. Because everywhere in Africa, they know Traoré is doing great. Even if they try, we are not ingaying. Tell me what you think on the comments section about this video. Do you believe Ibrahim Traoré has single-handedly bring the fall of France? Until next episode, peace out.